right. Well, big friendly hellos. Welcome to the first call of April 11th, 2023. Let's take a look at what's going on in Filecoin Plus this week. On the agenda, we're going to start out with notary issues. Notaries for you will be highlighting the leaderboard, as well as giving you this link for the participation SLA timeline. We'll also be sharing the roadmap that Galen put together as far as the top priorities that the team is working on, making sure that you have that link and you're well aware of it, and answering any questions you have for mission statement. For updates, we have a special guest speaker joining us, Caitlin Beagle, coming from the Filecoin Foundation. She's going to speak a little bit about FIP 56 and answer any questions that you guys might have about that process or how it closed out or any kind of next steps that goes along with it. Then we have an update as far as number 50. This was the due diligence. It's been on our schedule for 2 weeks, so this will be the last time that we're talking about it, as well as 2.1, which is the removal process that Simon will be walking us through. And lastly, another return to increasing the Datacap application to 15 petabytes. One last round of discussions before we close that out and move it offline. We have working group updates. KZ will be joining us to talk about 853, which is a full upfront disclosure for the Enterprise Fil Plus program. RG will be unable to make the call, so I'll speak on his behalf about the resolution process that Trust and Transparency put together, as well as how that process works for having a public repository, both named and anonymous, any questions. And we should have lots of time at the end of the call if there's anything on your mind that you wanted to bring up. As always, if you'd like to mention anything or have it discussed, please post it in chat and we'll make sure that we can kind of triage that question. We'll say it out loud so anybody watching on YouTube can answer. So with that, if you're joining this governance call, today is April 11th per California time. The next call will be taking place on April 25th. In the slide deck is the invite to this link if you want to add this to your shared calendar and keep up. But just a friendly reminder, the next call will take place 2 weeks, and the calls take place at 0800 Pacific and 1500 UTC, as well as 1800 Pacific and 01 the next day as we go forward. We post the agenda in the governance repo, so if you have any topics that you wanted to ensure were included, whether it was slides or a talking point, please see that agenda, add a comment just like, hey, Kevin, can I please have a few moments to talk about X? We'll build it in, give you access to insert slides and go forward. And as a friendly reminder, if you are a data applicant, if you would like to prepare a video, we'll make sure that that gets shared in the notary channels, but we're no longer dedicating time for an application summary as we go forward on that. So with that, Notary SLA, again, big thank you to Cataline and Bill for putting together the leaderboard dash. This is what we're looking at right now. It's the Notary's leaderboard. With this, we can now see the number of unique clients, time to Datacap, number of issues created, and this has kind of a stack ranking. This is the second week that we've kind of rolled this out. We'll talk more about how the participation works. But if you would like to manage and show your participation for meeting, I'm going to drop this very unique code in chat right now. If you copy that code out of chat, you can then sign into the leaderboard, enter that chat as your participation name. This will tie back to your GitHub and your leaderboard score, and that way it will have a credit for you participating one of the calls attended. We're going to import all of the old Airtable forms that we had in the past, but this is the new procedure going forward. So if you're a notary on the call right now, please see chat, grab that link, and I'll post the link just to the leaderboard one more time. And if you put that into the leaderboard under your GitHub address, that's what's going to populate this calls attended for your SLA participation. If you have any problems, any issues, please let me know in chat and I'll be happy to come through and help you after the call or triage you to get you set up. If you're not a notary, you're a storage provider, you're a data applicant, you're an interested community member, and you're on this call or you're watching it, I highly suggest that you do fill out this form. When we have the elections for notaries, one of the questions we asked is, what's been your past experience with the program? How have you contributed and participated? And being able to point to the fact that you've attended these governance meetings is a great way to show that you've been active and a member. So even if you're not a notary, you're on this call, highly recommend filling that out and just kind of connecting yourself to these links. That way we can kind of show your participation in the program with that. All right, notaries, this is a big one. We've updated the URL for the registry page. So previously we were using plus.fil.org. That is being sunset. So you might have seen the post come through in the public repos of Slack. This is just one of those friendly reminders to please update your bookmark to the registry. It's now filplus.fil.org. And when you follow that link, this is the new registration page. No other changes, but if you have the old one bookmarked and it doesn't work, this is the reason why we've updated this URL. So make sure that you've updated your bookmark. That way it comes through. Alexandre, thanks for putting that in chat. I appreciate that. And that'll go through. And then Wynan, I see your question in chat. I tried to register this UUID. It says empty. I'm going to assume that that's for the leaderboard. That unique ID for the meeting was coming through empty. If anybody else is getting a problem with that ID that I posted, let me know and I'll come through. Otherwise, Wynan, what I'll do after the call is I'll manually help and get that added for you. If it's just a you issue, I'll help you out. If anybody else has that, let me know and I'll troubleshoot when it's not my turn to talk and make sure you guys are set. Thanks for raising that. All right, quick friendly check-in on governance. So you know the governance team, there's 7 of us here to help you with whatever you have set up across the program. If you don't know who to reach out to or you're new to the program, always tag me in. I'll be happy to serve as just kind of a director to help get you to the right place as far as what we're all specifically working on and owning. So again, we have a very specific governance team here to help you. If you don't know who to reach out to, feel free to tag me and I can put you in the connection with the right member of the team. Galen posted in the public channel a couple of days ago about a very public roadmap that we've shared. And the highlights on this one is essentially that Filecoin Plus for the last year and a half has been really focused on bringing that data in, meaning large quantities of data growing the network. Now that that network is starting to reach a really high level of data, what we're kind of pivoting towards is a quality phase for that. So Galen spelled out 6 really specific parts of a roadmap in this blog post. And I'll put this blog post right here in chat. It's also in the slide deck if anybody wants to see it. And essentially what this will allow you to do is pull back and see what we're working on, what's currently in flight, what's coming down the pipeline next, and what you'll see in the coming months of 2023. So this master plan is all public. We're going to be releasing a lot more articles on Medium talking about the work that's being created, because sometimes this happens behind the scene and you might not be able to see it. So one of our goals in 2023 is to make it much more transparent as we go through and make that all set up for you. Just a quick reminder on our mission statement. We're looking for use cases on data onboarding that support like the storage through a governance process. So as you know, Fil Plus is putting that application through with an additional level of diligence by members of the community that have a vested interest in the stake of the program. So with that, we have I'm going to turn the floor over to Caitlin, and she's going to talk briefly about the FIP 56, what was going on, where the status was, and any notaries on the call that wanted to ask questions. Caitlin is a subject matter expert. Really happy to have her on the call. So Caitlin, thanks for joining us. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, K-Ray, and good morning from California. If we haven't met previously, my name is Caitlin, and I work as the Governance Technical Program Lead at the Filecoin Foundation, where we have been working through FIP 56, which proposed a sector duration multiplier for the Filecoin network for the past several months. Just this last week, we asked for core devs to review all community feedback received to date to help us decide whether the FIP ought to be accepted or rejected. And it was quite unanimous that this FIP did not have enough community consensus to move forward. So the sector duration multiple proposal has been rejected. It is not eligible for inclusion in the pending network version 19 upgrade or any future network upgrades. And although anyone, including the authors of FIP 56, are welcome to author new similar FIPs at any time, as of right now, I have no knowledge of any plans to reopen any future proposals for a sector duration multiplier or any sort of similar type proposal. With that, because the FIP was rejected, there's not much more information to share. We're moving forward, including 3 to 4 new FIPs in, again, network version 19, which is going to land on the network mid-May. Most of these are sort of technical enhancements and upgrades to existing protocol components. things related to window post processing and cron regulation also. Nothing too flashy or too exciting, though happy to provide more information about those as well. And just wanted to be here to perhaps answer any questions that anyone in the notary community may have about FIP 56 specifically.
Thanks, Caitlin. Alexandre, I see your hand. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I have one question. What was the most common, I guess, motive of or reason people gave to? What did you see as not having enough consensus when you reviewed the comments and whatnot? What was like the main point for not passing it through?
Yeah, thanks, Alexandre. So we have a lot of documentation to help support this decision, and I'd be happy to link it to you also. So the Filecoin Foundation is putting out a blog post to describe at a high level the conversation. We also have that meeting that core devs had. It's publicly available. We have meeting minutes for it also. And even though core devs agreed that FIP 56 was technically sound and that the actual impact of the policy was likely to be relatively minor compared to what storage providers were trying to hedge against in terms of risk, there was generally a belief that the storage provider community in particular really opposed this FIP. And if anything, that opposition should indicate that there may be other ways of thinking about this similar problem space, which is this kind of ambiguous, broader economic headwinds against the Filecoin network and making sure that our crypto economic model is aligned with proper incentives for the amount of risk that storage providers are taking on. But ultimately, it was core devs' really group decision that because storage providers themselves were the ones who would be responsible for actually implementing this policy by investing in upgrading sectors, that their concerns ought to be heeded and that it wouldn't be appropriate to decide to move forward with this FIP, given the concerns that that community had raised so consistently over the last several months.
All right, gotcha. If you can link to the documents or the discussion, will be nice. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And as a result of FIP 56, also, this type of crypto economic FIP was a real challenge to the way that we process protocol governance proposals. And as a result, we're actually working really hard to shift our focus now on introducing new processes, tools, and mechanisms to help ensure that governance as it scales is in fact increasingly decentralized also. So if you're interested in sort of these broader or meta governance questions that we're trying to answer, we have a community space for this also, and you all are more than welcome to participate in that. Again, governance of the Filecoin Plus program remains separate from protocol governance at large, but we do want to respect the fact that all of you are Filecoin community members, even as notaries. And if you want to talk about FIP1 changes, if you want to talk about potential ramps for including on-chain more governance decisions, if you're really curious about the FIP 56 process or want to understand the impacts for Filecoin Plus more deeply, you're welcome to register to join us at our next community protocol governance call. They happen monthly, but the next one will be on April 24th, so just a few weeks from now. And as mentioned, Alexandre, I'll pull up those links for you to some of the meeting notes and documentation from the FIP 56 discussion specifically.
That's awesome. Thanks a lot for that.
You're welcome. Any other questions that I can answer? All right, well, I'll stay on the call, and if there's Q&A time at the end and someone thinks of something, I'm happy to answer it then. But otherwise, I think K-Ray, it's back to you.
Thanks, Caitlin. Caitlin, if there was someone who wanted to follow along, what's the best place where someone could stay connected to the governance aside from the meetings?
Yeah, great question. So we actually just launched these meetings. Previously, protocol governance was not a super popular community topic since it tends to be pretty technically dense. But we will be setting up a new Slack channel just this week. So if you are interested in that, you can keep your eyes on the FIPS channel in Filecoin public Slack. That's currently where we share all of our updates and information. But we're going to be breaking that out so that FIPS discussions, et cetera, can stay separate from some of the other governance discussions we want to have. In addition, in the Filecoin GitHub channel, in the discussions forum, we also have weekly updates that we post with all of the necessary information that anyone may need. We welcome any community members to open discussions there, just like they do for Filecoin Plus governance issues. And again, in the interim, the Filecoin channel and Filecoin public Slack is usually the best place to reach us.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. Everyone, I'll link that in the Notaries channel so that we have access to that, and I'll make sure that it goes into the slide deck for this call. Caitlin, thank you so much for the time to come and explain that and just kind of outline that process. Grateful for your time. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, K-Ray.
All right. So with that, we're going to move into a little bit more of a tactical slant. We have 3 proposals that are currently working their way through GitHub. Consider this just updates. Some of these have been on past calls. This is a chance to kind of re-emphasize what's going on that roadmap, as well as give you and the community a chance to ask any discussion questions with the authors themselves. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Phil for the talk on what's going on with the Diligence Flow.
Hey guys, so just as a recap, this is going to be the new notary due diligence flow. The purpose of this is to give notaries more of a voice. So you can signal to other notaries if you approve, disapprove, or are waiting for evidence from the clients on a specific LDN application. So let's say you think an application looks nice, you approve, and we'll add an approve label for other notaries to see that this application has at least one approval. Same with if you decline an LDN application, and same with if you need more evidence. Another purpose of this is to give us more data so we can analyze exactly where an application is stuck, if it's stuck with notary due diligence, which is great for everyone. It just creates a more transparent flow for the LDN application process. As current updates, we are done making all the technical functionality, and we are testing different ways to go about this, because we don't want it to break. If it breaks, it'll mess up a bunch of labels for LDN applications, and that will slow down everyone. So we are just careful now to not push something that breaks. And yeah, that's the update. If you're interested in this, you can read the design in this proposal. And if you have any comments or thoughts about it, please put it there or contact me. Thank you so much. Giving it back to K-Ray then.
I appreciate that, Phil. Phil, one of the questions that I saw come through on Slack was, is this a process that has to be followed? Or if a notary wanted to take a separate path to performing their own diligence, will they still have that creative freedom? Or will this be like a mandatory process that must be followed?
This is not mandatory yet, but it is highly, highly recommended. It is not, you can do whatever due diligence process you want offline, but it is a way to denote that you have done your due diligence, right? So you do your diligence offline, and you put this template comment on GitHub to show that, hey, I've done my due diligence, and to signal to everyone else that you have done your due diligence, which is useful for other notaries because now they don't have to redo due diligence again if they trust you, right? So it will make all your lives easier if you follow this. Thank you.
It's wonderful. We'll pause for a moment. If anybody on the call has any questions for Phil or any thoughts on this proposal as it moves forward. All right, Phil, thanks for always looking forward to this. I think it'll make it really simplified for a lot of the newer notaries that come on board. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Simon, if you're on, I'll turn the floor over to you to speak to the Datacap request.
Yeah, thanks, K-Ray. So just want to be revisiting this proposal to just give some background. Due to the Ledger Filecoin app, we currently cannot support the ability to sign messages that don't end up on chain. And since all notaries are using the Ledger-based addresses, we're currently blocked from building the original Datacap removal feature. A lot of the technical blocks have been noted in the proposal, but I won't go too much into it right now, but more into like the temporary workaround that we're working on. And so the governance team decided to take action on this, especially with the program moving into the quality phase. So we'll be using two new notaries, one acting as a proposer and the other as an approver. These notaries will be used on behalf of actual notaries, but able to produce the signed bytes required to actually either modify or remove Datacap balances from client addresses on chain. Again, the intent is to use this as a temporary solution in the near term. The proposer will be operated by the TNT working group with RG, and the proposer will be operated by the governance team with me. For the workflow a little bit, all the requests for Datacap removal will be processed through the individual issues in the Notary Governance repo. The governance team or a proposing notary will fill out a template that includes relevant information, such as the client's application, name, address, and the amount of Datacap to be removed. Once the issue is live, notaries will have the opportunity to provide their input by commenting on the proposal. And then following a 2-week period of discussion and careful consideration of all the comments, if there is a consensus or a majority support of at least two notaries to remove the Datacap from the client address, the TNT working group or the governance team will essentially take action to remove Datacap. Again, this is just a temporary workaround until we are unblocked with the original way of going with this process.
Simon, I think one of the questions that came up from this is when we talk about the implementation, do we have an estimation? Is this Q2 of this year or later on that we'll see this removal process get formalized?
I would say this is definitely coming up within the next few weeks. Yeah, so I think again, 100% will be in Q2. Again, maybe within the next few weeks we'll start working on this essentially. So it'll be coming soon.
That's great. Any notaries on the call have any thoughts that they'd like to share or discuss or ask of Simon as he's working on this?
Yeah, and always just one last thing to note. Again, I know I just posted this today, but any ideas, feedbacks are always welcome too if you don't want to say it now. So please let us know.
Great. Simon, thank you for that. I think if you're still ready, can you talk a little about the sizing?
Yeah. So I know we talked about this in the last Notary Governance call, and I intentionally tried to start with the remove Datacap feature, but I know this proposal got a good amount of comments, and I think just some concern. There was a lot of people who raised some concerns. But I guess for those who weren't on the last governance call or did not see this proposal, essentially the short summary is that the idea is proposing to increase the Datacap request for LDNs to a limit of 15 pips per allocation. But the biggest thing is the allocation rate that clients receive Datacap will still stay the same. Again, just really, really want to reemphasize that clients will still receive the same amount of Datacap as they would today. I think there was a lot of concerns that people would be getting, having this opportunity to take advantage of this and getting on upwards of 15 pips. But I actually would make the argument that there are a lot of clients who are coming in applying for 3, 4, 5, 6 plus applications. And once one gets approved, all of the extra applications that follow with it will actually get their first allocation as well. So overall, in total, the client does end up getting more Datacap if they were to split their applications. And so I think this is a little bit of a better way of actually trying to see if clients kind of getting a better understanding of what clients are bringing in and to reduce that as well. One other thing to note is that if clients would like to apply over 15 PIBs, they would have to go through the E-Fil Plus guidelines and like pathway, and they can work with Kevin here as well.
That's great, Simon. So then I know that you have it on your slide there about the current allocation process, that in the first allocation, it's the lesser of 5%. So that won't change off the first cycle. This just means that if you have that larger data set, you can still use the program. Great update. Does anybody on the call have any questions or comments or any discussions on this proposal? Great.
Oh,
please go ahead, Simon.
Sorry. Just one thing forgot to mention. Yeah, please would love some more feedback. The governance team decided to basically take action on this and like try to close this by Friday. This coming, I believe that's the 14th. And we would start working on this. So please, we really do appreciate all the feedback and comments and even just ideas on maybe how we can improve this. Because these concerns are great, but I know also Deep made a good comment on this. So if you have any concerns, please check out his comment as well on the proposal.
Well said, Simon. Thank you. All right. With that, we're going to kind of switch gears into the working group updates. So we have updates from KZ, and I'll speak to RG since he's traveling today and won't be on the call. So KZ.
Sure. Thanks, K-Ray. So hello, everyone. Quick update on the E-Fil Plus pilot. I put together a proposal. It's number 853. There's a link here. And basically what we're looking to do is within the pilot, we're going to iterate on what we've accomplished thus far towards more efficient initial allocation approval processes. So up until this point, we've been assigning notaries randomly to review applications, and engagement levels are good, but at times it takes, let's say, 5 to 14 days for a full review to go through to be able to find notaries that take the time to engage and review an application and either approve or deny. But we've learned that with the E-Fil requirements, the KYC, KYB, not as many questions are being asked to get to that point of trust. So we want to implement what I'm calling a full upfront check. So based on a lot of the feedback and questions that notaries would ask that would delay sort of this approval process, we want to collect all that information up front to alleviate notaries from having to really go through any more back and forth. But essentially what they need is listed on this page here, right? We're going to collect data owner information and business information through KYC, KYB. We're going to collect information about the SPs involved in the project based on their locations, proof of data centers, et cetera. And then we're also going to collect more information about the data set itself, the size, all the information about the copies, where they're being stored, with whom, proof of the data set, sample of data sets. So this is the basic information that notaries ask for. We want to collect this up front. I'll be reviewing with the applicants moving forward to make sure all this information is available. And then we'll be testing to see if this is enough for notaries or if they're still requesting more information to make their decisions. And secondly, we're going to be removing the random assignments that we've been testing in the E-Fil. And I'd like to open up reviews for all the notaries in the working group. Again, just to allow for more efficient reviews, because async, this can take days. And for a lot of the E-Fil clients who are willing to submit as much information as is required, they're expecting, sort of a quicker turnaround in review time. So I'd like to enable everyone in the group to be able, depending if you're awake in the West Coast of the USA, or if you're in Asia, in China, and you're available to review something that's been submitted, it just makes things a bit smoother for clients who are looking for that quick turnaround time. And so I would estimate over the next probably 2 months, let's say the next 10 applications, we'll be able to collect a lot of data points here to see if the full upfront check is valid. and also the efficiency of opening up the working group towards approvals. That's my update for today. Gary, back to you.
Kevin, that's really exciting. One of the questions that I could see coming up from some of the notaries is once the KYC, KYB check is done at the initial upfront, is there a goal you're looking for signing, like sign within 12 hours, 24 hours? Is there like a target that we're hoping to get to after this is upfront?
The initial guidelines that I reviewed, and again, historically, as Phil Plus has evolved, things have changed, but I saw 3 days was sort of the average time, the expectation for notaries to be able to get to these things. I mean, these are volunteers who have other items, let's say, that they have to be responsible for in their own lives, and they don't necessarily have all the time and energy to address a lot of these applications. But our clients are becoming, as they're providing more and more information and being more transparent and providing as much trust as is needed, the expectations for approval times are faster. So imagine if you were applying for KYC on, a Web3 company site, you would want immediate results, right? You'd want the check to take place and you'd want to be approved as soon as possible. So that's where this is going. It can't be that immediate. Obviously, there's a lot to review with these applications, and finding notaries that are available still takes time. So long answer to your question, 24, 48 hours, we're slowly chipping down the expected time towards approval. I think if notaries can get to these requests within a day or two max, that'll meet expectations for now until we're able to automate more.
We had a question come through from chat, just saying this out loud for anybody watching the recording or not watching chat. It's what's currently like the step in the process that's most time consuming. So if a notary didn't have this full upfront check, where have you seen delays in that notary due diligence process so far?
One is just because we were assigning notaries, so my ability to have a notary engaged was limited, and I might have to reassign. So there was potentially a delay there. But more so, it's the back and forth. So if a client does not provide all this information that I have listed on the screen, notaries are going to ask. So let's say it takes a day to send a message, and then a client takes a day to send a message back. And then the notary, if they respond or are aware that they got a message back, takes them another day, right? So these async messages over different time zones, over different response rates can take days, weeks, and that's very inefficient using GitHub. So that's another thing that's on the radar, is just looking for other means of effective, quicker communication between notaries and clients. But I'd say that's the step that causes the most delay right now.
Thanks for that. Does anybody on the call have any other questions for KZ about this diligence upfront check, or kind of how the auto assigning will work going forward?
One thing, K-Ray, that I forgot to mention that's not listed here, I'm in the process of finalizing a new registration form. And Simon had mentioned a little bit earlier in the call about anyone with 15 or more PIDs that potentially looking to pry, so potential enterprise clients, they'll be able to use this form that I'm creating. Any future E-Fil clients will also be pushed towards the new form that I'm creating. And it's basically going to ask questions on all the information on the screen so that we have that information collected up front. So look for that. I'll post a note in the proposal, and then I'll also share that in the working group Slack channel once it's finalized.
That's awesome, Kevin. Props. It's going to be really impressive. Thanks for spearheading that. So RG, as I mentioned, isn't on the call, so I'll speak on his behalf. Anybody, feel free to interrupt me. Simon, Phil, KZ, if I say something or you have any more additional context. So a few months ago, we got the flags. It was really good flags. And it was, hey, I'm noticing some violations to the community standards. Either the way that the Datacap is being claimed to be stored, or it's duplicative, fill in the blanks. So we've had a lot of conversation on the trust and transparency side on how to bring this into a transparent process without making it so burdensome on the community to respond, or those of you that are finding these things. So there was a tracker that was put together. It was the dispute resolution tracker. I'm sharing screen with it now. This is a public tracker. It's linked in the slides. And what you can do with this is see specifically what the trust and transparency team is looking on and what their status is as they go through this. So again, this is meant to be more of a public, hey, is this on the roadmap for trust and transparency? Is anybody even looking at this data right now to kind of address this and get an answer on why this is taking place? In the meantime, RG put together a very well-written approach to how that dispute resolution is taking place. It's a Medium article it published just recently, and he spells out the steps on specifically what are they looking at, what's their timeline for those resolutions. So he's outlining 2 weeks, and that's enough time to give the community time to look at what the issue is, collect any input from somebody who might have been flagged in that to respond or provide additional context. And they're having that update on that tracker every Friday. So that means every Friday we'll be able to see that, kind of go through and then make that approach as it goes forward on that. So again, this dispute resolution tracker is public. I'm just going to copy the link here and put it in chat so everyone can see it again. And here is the article that RG published, the Medium article that was shared online, just in case you don't have it, for how that process is taking place. So again, this is meant to be much more transparent, also a much more abbreviated process. Rather than things taking months, the goal is to get these down to a few days, if not weeks, for that abuse process to be brought out to the light, flagged, and then corrected as we go forward. So I'm going to pause and see if anybody has any questions about this tracker, the article, or anything the TNT working group is currently focused on. Well, all right. I will have one alibi to this, is you can see on this flag, on this dispute resolution tracker, dispute raised by, if there was ever an issue that you came across and you just didn't feel comfortable putting your name on something and then have it be out in the community, you can always flag these things anonymously. So you can see like this one right here, this violation when self-dealing. This was flagged by an anonymous member, which is just totally fine. Okay. I want to stress that again. Sometimes it could be a little bit daunting to put together all that information, put your name on that. So big, big thank you to those of you that have done that, have taken that step to say, look, I believe in the program. I'm willing to stand behind my diligence, and I just want to flag this for others. But if there ever is a case where you see something and you wanted to flag this anonymously, that is always an option, and just reach out to RG. He'll obviously know who you are, but none of that information will be shared outside of RG specifically. That way you can raise these issues in a private, more anonymous manner. Galen, not to put you out, we have a few moments. Is there anything that you wanted to kind of speak to or call back? I tried to talk to the roadmap and the blog post that you had recently put together, but if you had any thoughts, any open time, no pressure, just wanted to make sure I gave you an opportunity if there's anything you wanted to add to.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure you did great. People have probably seen the blog post. It's now posted on the Filecoin Foundation blog, as well as our new Filecoin Plus Medium page. So you can check it out in both places. Go check it out on Medium first and give it claps, because that's one of the places where we're tracking metrics more closely. So read it there. We'll be posting things on that Medium page more frequently. They won't all be kind of full, long form blog posts like this one. They'll be more just sort of updates and some shorter things. But if you wanted to just go ahead and follow that Medium space. But then speaking specifically about it, there's some information about mission and vision. We've talked about it in a previous governance call. The mission sort of wording changed a little bit from that previous governance call, but you can go see it. And then there's a couple call outs on there around sort of how we are trying to define sort of the scope of the program. This has been sort of an ongoing question about what should or shouldn't get Datacap. How do we determine these different stakeholder groups and who's eligible? So we unpack that a little bit in the blog post. I would encourage everyone to go read it and let us know if you have questions, if something isn't clear. This is the definition we're going to work with for now, and the notaries will help us sort of unpack it into specific examples. But there's been a lot about, should should certain types of data be eligible for Datacap or not? And that's where we really want to try and get a little bit more clarity for everyone in the community. So check that out, specifically about the quality phase. You'll see the roadmap. There's some big items. We'll be updating that public roadmap as we go. We have some things getting checked off. We'll be adding new things to it. And we'll be adding a lot more metrics and dashboards to track how we're doing for those roadmap items. So I'm excited. I think it'll be a lot more transparency and accountability, both for the governance team and for the notaries and for the footprint of the project overall. So I'm sure that's exactly what K. Ray said when he pitched it earlier. Sorry, I couldn't make it. But yeah, happy to answer any questions if people have read it and there are some specific things they wanted to understand more. If there's specific things on the roadmap that you wanted to address, let us know. Ask us here, ask us on Slack. Thanks.
Oh, well said, Galen. Me use good words, try best could when I did that presentation. So to everything we said. If there was anything else, open time. If there's anything on your mind, we still have a moment. All right. Well, hello. Welcome to the second Notary Governance call of April 11th. Let's take a look at what we have in store. Tonight, we are going to go through some updates on the notary side of the house. This will include the new update link for the leaderboard, making sure that you're logging the SLA for that. We have an update to the URL for the registry page. We'll be sharing that link and making sure that you're all tracking, as well as checking in on the roadmaps that we publish to Medium and keeping you aware of what projects the governance team is working on. As far as proposals and governance, we'll circle back to FIP 56, share some links and making sure that everyone's tracking the repositories where those take place. And then we have 3 proposals that are currently working their way through. So we'll have updates from myself, Simon, and Phil talking about what those proposals are and what they're going to mean for the community at the Fil Plus program. KZ will be on the line to walk through the work that they're doing on Enterprise Fil Plus, and RG will be out of the office, so I'll speak to updates on trust and transparency. As always, if there's anything that you wanted to add, we'll have plenty of time at the end of this call for any community discussions, and always feel free to link in. This is the second call of April 11th. Next call will take place April 25th, and you can see the schedule for the year remaining. If you don't have this on your calendar, the link will be right there. And I just put the deck to tonight's presentation right here in our chat as we go along. You'll also find it in the YouTube link as well as in Slack if you want to see any of the slides that we mentioned in this presentation. If you are keen to add an item to an agenda, feel free to come to the repository and just say, hey, Kevin, can I please have 3 minutes to talk about this? And whatever this is, we'll put on the agenda and make sure that it's part of the issues that we're tracking. So at any time you wish to discuss, flag, or raise an issue, just come to the repository. This gets made 2 weeks before the call, and just add any topics that you'd like to share, and I could reach out to you to make sure that any slides or time is allocated for that presentation as you go. For you notaries on the call, thank you. We're now sunsetting Airtable completely and working on migrating that historical data in to the new notary leaderboard that was built. So big props to Catalina and Phil for putting this together. And essentially what I'm going to do right now is grab the link to this leaderboard that we have right now. And what I do is every week, as you see on my screen sharing, I make a new invitation to this meeting. I'm going to grab that invitation now and post it in chat. If you log into the leaderboard page with this login that I'm posting now, that's how you can log your participation in. And I'm just going to grab this link one more time if you haven't bookmarked this. And this is the leaderboard that's being built out that will actually track all the stats, TTDs, participation in GitHub repos, time to Datacap analysis, the SLAs, all of it will be in this leaderboard. So again, if you're on the call and you're a notary, you'll need to sign in using the GitHub that you created your application with. If you're a community member, if you're a storage provider, if you're an applicant, and you might be wanting to participate more in the program in the future, I would strongly recommend that you sign in to GitHub, that you sign in using this link, because when we do look at notary applications, we take a large account of how long you've been active and participating in the program. Coming to these syncs and staying active and what's taking place is a great way to show that. So even if you're not a notary, I highly encourage you to follow those 2 links. that link will be open for a while for you to sign in and go through it. If at any time you have any technical questions, feel free to comment and chat on this call, or you can send a DM to Phil and I in the public Slack, and we'll be helping to troubleshoot anything that you may have as you go through it. So with that, let's talk about notary updates for you. First big one is the registry URL has changed. So this was pushed in Slack, just making sure that you are all aware. The new address is filplus.fil.org. The plus.fil.org has been sunset. So just a shift in how that's phrased. This is just a friendly reminder to update your bookmarks, because if you follow that old URL, it will no longer work. And that new filplus.fil.org is how you can sign into the registry. If you have any issues, as always, feel free to reach out and I'll link you into the right POCs to get that fixed for you. So with that, let's talk about what's going on the government side of the house. The 7 members of us make up the FilPlus team. Our titles are listed right below us. So if you ever need help in any aspect, feel free to reach out to any member of our team responsible for that. If you're not quite sure who to go to for a question, or you're looking for a friendly ping, always feel free to reach out to me, Kevin-FF, and I can happily route you to the place you need to go, the Slack channel, or the POC that would be able to help you the most. So again, reach out anything you may need. We spoke last governance call about the roadmap that we're working on. One of the goals that we're kicking off here in the first part of 2023 is trying to make the FilPlus work that's happening much more transparent. So Galen put together a blog post in Medium. He and Deep outlined essentially what are the 6 phases for FilPlus taking place. Galen spoke at length about these, for how to find out about them, how to kind of articulate that, and how we're transitioning from bringing data on to the Filecoin network, and in 2023, shifting that from just quantity to quality. So a lot of the roadmaps that we're working on and a lot of the tooling are focused on making sure that the data is onboarded is quality data to add to the betterment of human. So as you look at these, as you look at this blog post, that's where the slant is going. And a lot of the work that we're talking about, whether it's in these proposals already or in the roadmap that we're going to share, the work that comes out is really focused again on quality of data that we're pulling in. So if you have any question about these posts, if you have any issues, feel free to reach out in either the Slack channel for notaries, the FilPlus, or message Galen, who is the author of this and deserves the credit and props for putting this together. It's really well structured. We have a roadmap with engineering sprints that you'll see coming down the pipeline. And as always, looking for your feedback and input to make sure that we're serving you as this network continues to grow. We talked about this mission statement last time, and I think the big call out that I would reiterate is that we're looking for the use cases for the data onboarding and really driving home that decentralized storage through community governance. And I think that that's probably the big stress point that I would say that we're seeing from our roles on governance is how do we support you as a community, especially you notaries that are taking your time to look at this data, onboard this data, and make sure that it's benefiting all that come through. So really driving home that community governance aspect is what we're working on, and making sure that you have a voice, you have a say, and that this is built in a way that benefits you, by you, for you. So if you have any questions on this, again, feel free to reach out, and we'll have plenty of time to circle back to this on the end of the call if you have any thoughts, room for improvement, or any discussion as that goes forward. The broader ecosystem governance, an update for you if you're following this. So essentially, FIP 56 did not pass. Lots of discussion, lots of ongoing, and Caitlin joined us on the morning session to kind of outline where we could find some more resources about this and really how this process was driven forward. So I put 2 of those links. These weren't included in the morning session. These are just now added. So I'll make sure that those get added to the links in Slack. But essentially, there is a channel in Slack called FilFips. In there is a lot of the links, discussion, and chatter that might happen offline of a GitHub repository. What's coming down the pipe? When are they meeting? What are they talking about? There's also a governance repo that's linked here in the slide deck. And inside of that governance repo, you can then see all of the issues that they're tracking, not just FIP 56, but what's currently in progress. I took a quick screenshot and put that in this slide deck so you can see the 5 FIPs that are ongoing. Again, these improvement plans are really built off the community and the input that gets added. So if you were a notary please speak up. Your voice is counted and heard. If you have input in these, add them as they go forward. And in this community tracking board, there's also discussions that you can take part in. So if you're curious to see not only what was taking place, but what other members of the community might be feeling as far as sentiment goes, this is a great place to start. This governance team holds monthly meetings. They share this in the Phil Plus channel as well as the Phil Phipps channel. So if you were curious to have your voice, to speak up, or just hear general sentiment on what's going on with governance, those are the great places to check out. And again, if you have any questions on this, we'll have plenty of time at the end of the call to circle back and talk about this in great detail for whatever you may be curious to discuss. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Phil, and to walk us through that. I see some questions in chat before I go on. I will repost the code here, and then I'll repost it at the end. Just like in Airtable, I think that if you join a Slack or a Zoom call after I've posted it, you won't see it. So those of you in chat, I'll post that link one more time if you're a late joiner, and I'll do it again at the end of the call, always at the end of the call. That way you don't have to worry. So Phil, if you're on the call, I'll turn it over to you for 8:50. And awkward. Phil's not on the call, so you know what? I'm just going to speak to it. And Phil, if you jump in, you cut me right off. Here's what's going on with 850. If you're a notary, you realize something. It's really difficult to tease out a lot of the diligence in these applications. There's a message, there's a back and forth. And in those back and forths, there's lots of room for like things to get lost. There's not always a script on what to do. So Phil's been working really hard to put together essentially like a diligence pathway. So it's essentially a checkbox. So if a person asks for an application, they would then be prompted to provide information. Then the notaries can look at those prompts, follow these scripts, and then rather than having guesswork into what articulate diligence looks like, this script, this due diligence prompts will have labels. And as those labels progress, it will advance that LDN through the system. The goal of this is to make the lives of you notaries a little bit simpler when you're going through this process. And this is just one of those small steps that you'll see in trying to make this process as easy as possible for you to make quality decisions as you're onboarding quality data to it. So the issue is 850. I'll link it here in the chat as soon as I'm done talking. And it's a great way if you want to share any comments. This is the third time we've talked about it. So this is the last opportunity if you have thoughts or inputs to share where you want to have any kind of discussion. And at the very end of the call, we'll have plenty of time to circle back with that. So I do see Simon. So Simon, if you're up, I'll pass the baton over to Bud to speak to 821.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Kere. Yeah, so for 821, I know we talked about this a few weeks back and a few notary calls back, but we'll be basically revisiting this proposal. And to just give you some background, due to the Ledger Filecoin application, we are unable to support signing messages that do not end up on chain. Additionally, all notaries are using the ledger-based addresses, which is currently preventing us from building the Datacap removal feature. A lot of the technical blocks have been noted in the proposal, which I commented. I won't go too much into it right now, but you can definitely check it out. Again, it's the latest comment in the proposal, but I do want to go more into the temporary workaround. So given that the program is moving into the quality phase, the governance team decided to take action to get this going. So the new workflow would be that 2 new notary addresses will be used, one as a proposer and the other as an approver. These notaries will act on behalf of actual notaries and will be able to produce the signed bytes required to either modify or remove Datacap balances from client addresses on chain. Again, this solution is intended to be temporary. The TNT working group with RG will operate the proposer, and the governance team with me will operate the approver. All of the requests for Datacap removal will be processed through individual issues in the Notary Governance repo. The governance team or proposing notary will complete a template with relevant information, just such as like the client's application, the name, address, and the amount of Datacap to be removed. Once the issue is live, notaries will have the opportunity to comment on the proposal after a 2-week discussion period and careful consideration of all the comments. If there is a consensus or majority support by at least 2 notaries, the TNT working group or the governance team will take action to remove Datacap. That's kind of the summary of the new workaround. Again, please take a look at the latest comment on the proposal. Would love any feedback and yeah.
Great. Simon, while you're on the call, I'll just pass it right over to you for 851.
Yeah, sounds good. Again, yeah, I know we talked about this one, I think the last governance call as well. But for those of you who weren't there or did not see the proposal, just to give you the short summary, essentially this idea is proposing to increase Datacap requests for LDNs to a limit of 15 PIB per applications. But however, the thing that I really do want to emphasize is that the allocation rate that clients receive Datacap will still stay the same as it's now, which is all outlined in the proposal. And so please take a look if you haven't. But just to reemphasize, clients will still receive the same amount of Datacap as they would today. But the governance team will move forward with this and will want to close this proposal by this coming Friday, the 14th. So I just want to bring it up one last time because I know there was a couple of concerns that were raised, and just if there are any ideas or just again other concerns, please raise them in the proposal and we can discuss them a little bit more.
That's great, Simon. Thank you. So I'd like to pause and see if anybody has any thoughts or comments or questions on 851, which is increasing the allocation from 5 up to 15, or the Datacap removal request, how this workflow would look and how it would take place, or the due diligence plan that Phil is working on. So if you have any thoughts, comments, or questions on the call, this is your chance. Just shoot a hand up and we'll be happy to turn the floor over to you. All right. We'll always have time at the end of the call in case something comes up, or again, shoot that hand and I'll be happy to come back. KZ, I see you're on the line. I'll kick it over to you for the working group.
Scary. Hello, everyone. So quick update on the Enterprise Fill Plus pilot. I've put together an iteration proposal that will be focused on moving forward, where, as we work through this pilot, we're continuing to focus on ways to either make checks more efficient, or in this case, we're looking to find ways to produce enough information to build trust for notaries to be able to make a check, especially the initial allocation review, have all the information they need in front of them to make that review. Because what I've found during the pilot over the past few months, we were making clients do a KYC check, KYB check, presenting information about SPs, but notaries are still asking questions about the data set, about SP locations, about some other things. So I'm attempting to put together a list that will require all this information to be produced by the client up front, and then we want to test to see if this is really enough for notaries to say, okay, this looks good. This is a good essence. This is the essence of what we need to essentially produce that first allocation. So over the next 10, 15 data set allocations, we're looking to test to see what that looks like. Clients will be expected to produce this information. I'm putting together a sort of separate registration form that they'll be sent that'll go to me, and then I'll get that in the hands of the notaries to be able to review as they're looking at the applications. The other thing that we're doing here as well, for those that have been following along, we were assigning notaries to allocation reviews, and just based on some feedback we've gotten, and again, just in the essence of testing, continuing to iterate, we found that some of our clients, because they're open and straightforward with this information, they're expecting sort of reviews and checks on the allocation and in a more timely manner. So we found by assigning, there were issues with notifications going out, and there were issues with notaries just not available, which is understandable. So I have a full working group of 35 notaries that can be available to do these checks. So we just want to open it back up to all of them to enable the notaries to be eligible to review as requests come in, whether you're in a different time zone, because these requests can come in, as everyone knows, anytime. So in an effort to have notaries that are available to make some of these reviews, we're sort of reopening the reviews back up to all the notaries in the working group. So this is what we're looking at moving forward. Like I said, we'll look to test this over the next probably 2 months or so to see how this looks, with the ultimate goal to move closer and closer towards automating that initial allocation as much as we can. Yeah, so I'll pause there. Okay, Ray.
Oh, that was great, KZ. Opening it up, if anybody on the call has questions about this, if I'm hearing, just as like somebody who's with the notaries, the big change is trying to make this easier for you as notaries, so you're not always having to check GitHub for those application questions. And then also removing that. Notaries on the call that are participating, if you have any feedback or thoughts, this would be great to hear your input. All right. Well, if anything should come up, we'll have time at the end, as always. Thanks for putting the comments. 83853 is in the chat if you want to add any input. KZ, man, props. Can't wait to see this, and awesome stuff that you're doing there. RG's not on the call, so filling big shoes for him tonight, speaking to what's going on with the TNT. So ever since we've really started to take a look at the quality data, a lot has been asked of the Trust and Transparency Working Group to really do two things. One is to look into what's happening on that diligence process and make sure that it's happening fair and equitable and free of fraud. And the second is be transparent with that. So to that length, RG has put together this public Notion page. It's called the Resolution Tracker. I just put the link in chat if you were keen to see it or follow along. But essentially what this is meant to be is a public transparency, auditable, readable for anybody who's curious to see what the Trust and Transparency team is looking at and what kind of issues they're discussing. I'd call out, if you're a notary looking at this for the first time, is that there's the option to flag things anonymous. Some of the feedback we got was, hey, I noticed something, but I don't really want to start any kind of discussion or have my name be involved in that. But I wanted to be able to flag that for review. So RG took that feedback, and as you can see some of the lines that I have highlighted on the slide, if there's a violation that you'd like to flag, by messaging RG directly, you can raise that without having to ever give your name and really step forward. So if there was an issue that you saw as a notary that you wanted to flag, but you were fearful or just didn't want to deal with whatever might come from that discussion, RG will take that and make sure that that flag is raised anonymously. So it will just be between you and RG. It doesn't go out to the working group. And it's a great way if you want to stay transparent and have your identity just kind of not shared with this. RG also put together a blog that talked about how essentially are they looking at this approach to having that communication. I'll put that blog here in chat as well. And essentially what this is just a Medium article where he just essentially spells out that every week on Friday, they're going to be collecting this and surface these voices, surface this concern in that spreadsheet tracker, and then making sure that that's a priority that's going along with the tooling that Simon and Phil are putting together, with the enhancements that KZ is doing on the enterprise side of the house, so that not only is this process is simplified, transparent, and easy to use for you notaries, but also to make sure that that Datacap application is going out to the right intended applications and being signed and stored in an effective way. So that blog article talks a lot about that. It's a short, probably 2-minute read. I just linked it here in chat. It's in the slide deck if you have any questions. So this notary resolution tracker is up. If you'd like to see anything, feel free to click on that as you go forward. Quick updates from our side, and we have a full 30 minutes left. So either lots of conversations coming or happening online, but with that, the floor is yours. If you're on this call and there is literally anything you'd like to talk about, stick a hand, unmute, the floor is yours.
I have a quick question, which is why is the Notion? Why are we doing this on the Notion rather than keeping this on GitHub? I'm not a huge fan of GitHub, but it seems a little strange to be spanning over more mediums.
It's a good flag, Danny. I apologize that RG isn't here to answer that. And since I don't have an answer, I won't make up one. Okay. I will find out with RG and I'll make sure that we post in Slack to get that answered. Thanks for flagging that, and we'll get an answer published shortly for you. If there's anything that comes up, as always, feel free to Slack us or mention in GitHub. Otherwise, thank you all for your time to dial into this call. If you have any issues, let us know. Otherwise, have a wonderful night, everybody. Thanks for coming to the call. Cheers.